and joining us now on 6 p.m. Prime is Mr. Mahesh Jethmalani, Member of Parliament in the Rajya Sabha, Senior Supreme Court Advocate. Mr. Jethmalani, thank you for joining us here on India Today. Good evening, sir. Do you believe, looking at all of the, showdown and all the talk, debate over the BBC documentary, sir, that there could be a conspiracy, specifically a Chinese conspiracy at play here?
I certainly believe there's a Chinese hand behind it. I certainly do. The BBC made no disclosure about this, right? They have not talked about their Chinese links, and their Chinese links through Huawei, the telecom company. Their funding by this entity has been both long-standing and clandestine. They've taken money from Huawei for a long time, and there's been venomous anti-India propaganda, complete lies spread about the Indian Army's activities in Kashmir. As you know, in 2021, they published a map of India truncated without Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir, and the Indian government took up the matter with them, and they apologized, and they got away that time, right? So there has been both overt and insidious propaganda, anti-Indian propaganda, by the BBC for a long, long time, and I think enough is enough. This country has tolerated this complete, false propaganda for a long time, and they needed to be exposed. It's no longer a white man's burden. This country is out of its colonial strangulation, right? We don't accept everything that's said by, foreign newspapers and foreign television, foreign media generally. So it's about time this happened. And the timing of the entire documentary is suspect, apart from the fact that the money was concealed. And it was concealed because not only our allies in Quad, such as the USA and Australia, but even the UK have banned Huawei from 5G trials. The USA and Australia have considered them a security threat, right?
Yeah.
Britain is close to the same thing. Yet, they escaped sanctions. They escaped sanctions from the UK, right? And they took this money, not in the UK. Huawei is now funding them through an entity called Storyworks, right? The money is coming to that entity. So at home, everything is sanitized. But abroad, for the poor ex-colonies like us, the white man's burden, they're peddling untruths, right? Which suits Chinese interests. And they peddle it because they can't get away from this. They peddle it because they are funded by Huawei.
I was going to ask you about, for all of those naysayers who say, what's wrong with Huawei really putting money into BBC? I think you've answered that perfectly, sir, by explaining how Huawei also has faced several issues in several countries because of security issues and their clear link to the Chinese administration, to the Chinese state. There are protests, yes, Mr. Jethmalani, in London, in India against the documentary, but there are many who also refer to this documentary as the truth. They're saying it's eye-opening about the 2002 riots, about Narendra Modi, completely discarding also what the Supreme Court has said. What do you have to say to them, Mr. Jethmalani?
Akshita, I can't hear you. I'm sorry. For the last minute has come.
Can you hear me now, sir?
Garbled. Yes, I can.
Okay, I'll just repeat my question. We've seen protests against the BBC in London. We've seen it in India as well. But there are many in the country who say that this documentary, sir, is eye-opening, that it's the truth about the 2002 riots in Narendra Modi, discarding what the Supreme Court also has ruled on it. What is your message to them?
My message is, take your Supreme Court and your investigating agencies and all the courts who have examined threadbare, unlike the BBC documentary, right? The entire evidence on record. Please familiarize yourself about the starting point of the riots, and who was behind it, which was the Karsevak burning, 59 Karsevaks burnt at Godhra railway station. Please familiarize yourself, who was it, right? You will find that it was a Pakistani agent who started the entire episode. It was a pre-planned conspiracy to burn the Karsevaks 48 hours before, right? And that gentleman escaped to Pakistan immediately after he had set up the entire train burning prelude. So they should do their homework well. The entire 2002 issue in 2023 coming up, ignoring extremely detailed judgments of many courts, right, is a travesty of journalism. It's a complete travesty. This is a hit job. In fact, it's a hatchet job of the worst kind and the most clumsy kind, right? And you've been tripped up because, you know, you are now exposed as having taken money from an entity that will revel in the kind of material that you have published.